Right now, you're probably thinking he was insane, or blackmailed, or stupid. But here's what will haunt you after hearing this story. He wasn't any of those things. He was rational, intelligent, and made his choice with eyes wide open. And his reason for returning will make you question everything you believe about freedom, identity, and what humans really need to survive. In the next few minutes, I'll take you inside the mind of Werner Stiller, the Stasi officer who defected to the West with state secrets that could have started World War III. You'll feel the euphoria of his escape, the shock of his Western life, and the devastating realization that made him do the unthinkable. This isn't just Cold War history. This is about why millions today are slaves to systems they claim to hate. Because Werner Stiller's story reveals a truth so uncomfortable that even now, 40 years later, intelligence agencies don't want you to understand it. Picture this. East Berlin, 1985. The wall has stood for 24 years. Every street corner has eyes. Every phone call has ears. Every thought that deviates from party line could destroy your life. The Stasi has more informants per capita than any secret police in history. 1 in 60, 3 East Germans spies on their neighbors. Children report parents. Spouses betray each other. Trust doesn't exist. Can you imagine living like that? Never speaking freely. Never relaxing. Never knowing if your best friend is documenting your every word for the state. Your apartment is bugged. Your mail is read. Your life is a performance where one wrong line means prison or worse. This is Werner Stiller's world. And he's not just living in it. He's enforcing it. Chapter 1c. The perfect spy. Werner Stiller wasn't supposed to exist. Born in 1947 in East Germany's ruins, he grew up in a nation that was really a massive prison camp. Soviet tanks on every corner. Propaganda on every wall. His childhood memories smell like coal smoke and fear. The sound of boots on cobblestones. The sight of neighbors disappearing in the night, never to return. But young Werner was smart. Scary smart. The kind of intelligence that communist systems both needed and feared. By age 16, he spoke fluent Russian. By 18, he'd mastered scientific principles that university professors struggled with. The state noticed. The state always noticed exceptional minds. They could be weapons or threats. Better to make them weapons. The Stasi recruited him at 21. Not asked. Recruited. In East Germany, when the Ministry for State Security wanted you. Refusal wasn't really an option. They made him an offer wrapped in threats, wrapped in patriotic duty. Serve the state's intelligence apparatus or watch your family suffer mysterious misfortunes. So, Werner became what they wanted. A scientific intelligence officer. His job, stealing Western technology secrets. He learned to photograph documents without leaving traces. To cultivate sources who didn't know they were sources. To live multiple lives simultaneously without losing track of which lie he'd told to whom. Feel that pressure building. Every day. Werner walked a tightrope between success that meant promotion and failure that meant suspicion. In the Stasi, being too good at your job was dangerous. It meant you were clever enough to be a threat. Being bad at your job was also dangerous. It meant you were useless or possibly sabotaging operations. By 1978, Werner had risen to become a captain in the HVA, East Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service. He ran networks of agents, stealing computer technology from West German companies. He was trusted with state secrets that could destabilize NATO. He had access to files that revealed the true scope of East German surveillance. Files that showed him something that shattered his world. Chapter 2. The files that changed everything one night in his office at Stasi headquarters in East Berlin. Werner found himself alone with classified documents he wasn't supposed to see. Not forbidden exactly, but outside his operational need. Curiosity is dangerous for spies, but Werner couldn't help himself. He started reading. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The Stasi didn't just spy on enemies. They had files on everyone. Everyone. Including him. Including his family. Including other Stasi officers. Pages and pages documenting every conversation, every purchase, every moment of their lives. His own file was thick. Reports from informants he considered friends. Transcripts of pillow talk with girlfriends. Analysis of his psychological profile suggesting he showed signs of ideological deviation. That phrase was a death sentence in bureaucratic language. They were watching the watchers, and they were watching him. But worse than his own file were the operation plans he discovered. Plans to arrest thousands of citizens at the first sign of unrest. Detailed preparations for concentration camps. Lists of people to be neutralized if war broke out. His own mother's name was on one list. Not because she'd done anything wrong, but because her connection to him made her a potential liability. Can you imagine that moment? Discovering that the system you serve plans to murder your mother. That your loyalty means nothing. That you're not a valued officer, but just another potential enemy to be eliminated when convenient. Werner's hands shook as he photographed the documents. Not to steal them for the enemy, but to have proof. Proof of what he was beginning to understand. The state he served wasn't protecting East Germans. It was preparing to exterminate them if necessary. Every citizen was a potential enemy. Every Stasi officer was expendable. Nobody was safe. Nobody was trusted. Nobody mattered. Chapter 3. The breaking point. For months after discovering those files, Werner continued his work, but something had broken inside him. He'd see his fellow officers and wonder which ones were reporting on him. He'd meet his agents and know the Stasi had agents watching them too. The paranoia wasn't mental illness. It was clarity. He started noticing things he'd ignored before. The fear in people's eyes when they saw his Stasi identification. The way conversations died when he entered a room. The children who ran when they saw him coming. He wasn't a protector of the state. He was a monster in a machine that devoured its own people. The final straw came during an operation in Poland. Werner was meeting an agent who'd been stealing computer designs from a Western company. The agent was nervous, sweating, clearly terrified, not of being caught by the West, but of Werner himself. During their meeting, the agent broke down crying, begging Werner to let his family emigrate, offering everything he had for freedom. Werner heard himself giving the standard response. Duty to the socialist cause. The importance of their work. The threats disguised as reminders of obligation. But as he spoke, he saw himself from the outside. A well-dressed thug terrorizing a desperate man into betraying others for a system that would eventually betray him too. That night in his Warsaw hotel room, Werner made a decision. He would defect. Not because he suddenly loved capitalism or democracy, but because he couldn't be part of this anymore. He couldn't keep feeding souls to a machine that crushed them into paste. But here's what makes Werner's story different. He didn't just want to escape. He wanted to damage the system that had turned him into a monster. So he began the most dangerous game imaginable. Preparing to defect while still operating as a senior intelligence officer. One mistake, and he'd disappear into a Stasi prison where torture was a science and death was a mercy. Chapter 40. The Art of the Double Game, January 1979. Werner begins his preparation. But this isn't Hollywood, where spies have elaborate escape plans and safe houses. This is real life, where one suspicious move means death. Werner has to continue his normal work while secretly documenting everything he can steal. He develops a routine. Arrive early at headquarters. Work normally during the day. Stay late, volunteering for extra duties. But during those extra hours, he's photographing documents, memorizing agent names, copying operational plans. He hides microfilm in places so obvious no one would check. Inside his official Stasi badge. Sewn into his uniform. The best place to hide is in plain sight. The stress is destroying him. He can't sleep. Can't eat. Loses 20 pounds in 3 months. His colleagues notice. They ask if he's sick. He claims it's work stress. Dedication to the cause. They seem to buy it, but in the Stasi, seeming means nothing. They could be testing him. Every concerned question could be an interrogation. Every friendly gesture could be surveillance. Werner develops tricks to stay sane. He assigns personalities to the different versions of himself. There's Werner, the loyal officer, who believes every propaganda word. Werner, the skeptic, who asks careful questions. Werner, the defector, who remembers every detail for his eventual debriefing. He switches between them like changing clothes, never letting anyone see the real Werner, who's screaming inside. Can you feel that psychological fracturing? That's what deep cover does to the human mind. You become so many different people that you forget which one is real. Werner would look in mirrors and not recognize himself. He'd start sentences and forget which personality was supposed to finish them. He was dissolving into his own lies. Chapter 5. The Escape Plan. By December 1979, Werner has gathered enough intelligence to buy his freedom. Names of every East German agent in West Germany. Details of technology theft operations. Stasi communication codes. Evidence of KGB operations in NATO countries. Information so valuable that any Western intelligence agency would pay millions for it. But how to defect? A Stasi watches everyone, especially its own officers. Werner can't just walk into a Western embassy. That's the first place they monitor. He can't contact Western intelligence directly. Every phone is tapped, every letter read. He needs a plan so unexpected that the Stasi won't see it coming. The opportunity comes from his job itself. Werner is assigned to travel to West Germany undercover, posing as a businessman to meet agents. It's perfect. He'll already be in the West. He just has to disappear. But the Stasi has protocols for officers traveling to enemy territory. Handlers watching handlers. Check-ins every few hours. Miss one and extraction teams mobilize. Werner plans every detail obsessively. He'll have exactly 4 hours between check-ins. In those 4 hours, he needs to reach a Western intelligence contact, convince them he's genuine, and get to safety before the Stasi realizes he's gone. 4 hours to end his old life and begin a new one. 4 hours of freedom before they start hunting him. The night before leaving for West Germany, Werner doesn't sleep. He burns personal items that might reveal his intentions. Destroys photos that could be used against people he cares about. Writes mental goodbye letters to friends and family he'll never see again. Because once he defects, everyone who ever knew him becomes a potential Stasi target. Feel that loneliness. That's the price of defection. Not just leaving a country, but erasing every human connection you've ever made. Werner is about to become a ghost, haunted by memories of people who will be forced to curse his name to prove their own loyalty. Chapter 6e. 4 Hours of Freedom, January 19, 1979. Hanover, West Germany. Werner checks into his hotel as planned, meets his Stasi handler in the lobby, confirms his schedule for the day. Everything normal, everything routine. Inside, his heart pounds so hard he's sure others can hear it. He has a meeting with an agent at 2 p.m. The next check-in is at 6 p.m. 4 hours. He attends the meeting, gathers the intelligence, maintains his cover perfectly. The agent suspects nothing. At 2:47 p.m., Werner excuses himself to use the bathroom. Instead, he walks out the back door and keeps walking. No running. Running attracts attention. Just a businessman walking purposefully through Hanover streets. Every police officer could be Stasi. Every car could be surveillance. Every person who looks at him too long could be reporting his location. But Werner keeps walking. Following a route he memorized months ago, 3:15 p.m., he reaches a phone booth. Calls a number he memorized from a Western intelligence document. He wasn't supposed to see. The voice that answers speaks German with an American accent. Werner says 5 words that will change his life forever. I want to come over. Those 5 words trigger a response protocol Werner couldn't have imagined. Within minutes, CIA assets are moving. Safe houses are being prepared. Extraction routes are being activated. The Americans have been waiting for someone like Werner for years. A senior Stasi officer with current intelligence. He's not just a defector. He's an intelligence goldmine. 3:45 p.m. A car pulls up. Werner doesn't know the driver, but the man says the right code words. Werner gets in, and they drive. Not fast, not suspicious. Just 2 men in a car in afternoon traffic. But Werner knows that back in East Germany, countdown clocks are ticking toward his missed check-in. Chapter 7 say. The debriefing, the CIA safe house in Frankfurt becomes Werner's world for the next 3 months. A nice prison, but still a prison. He can't leave, can't contact anyone, can't exist outside these walls until they've extracted every piece of intelligence from his head. The debriefings are exhausting. 12 hours a day, every day. American, British, and West German intelligence officers asking the same questions, different ways. Testing his knowledge. Verifying his claims. They're friendly but skeptical. How do they know he's not a double agent? How do they know this isn't an elaborate Stasi deception? Werner provides proof. Names, dates, operations that only a real insider would know. He identifies Stasi agents from photographs. Reveals dead drop locations. Explains communication protocols. Slowly, the skepticism fades. His intelligence is too detailed, too accurate to be fabrication. Werner Stiller is the real deal. But something unexpected happens during these debriefings. As Werner describes East German life, the Western officers struggle to understand. They can't comprehend the total surveillance. The complete lack of privacy. The way fear becomes normal. They keep asking why people don't resist. Why they accept such oppression. They don't understand that when oppression is total, resistance becomes unimaginable. Werner tries to explain. Imagine every word you speak is recorded. Every friend is potentially an informant. Every thought that differs from official ideology is a crime. You don't resist because resistance means not just your destruction, but your family's. Your children won't get education. Your spouse won't get work. Your parents will lose their pensions. The state doesn't just punish you. It erases your entire bloodline from society. The Western officers nod, but Werner sees they don't really understand. How could they? They've never lived where buying the wrong book could destroy your life. Where telling a joke about the leader means 5 years in prison. Where your own children are taught to report your private conversations. Freedom is incomprehensible to those who've never lost it. Chapter 80. The Golden Cage, April 1979. Werner's debriefings end. The Western intelligence agencies are satisfied. He's given a new identity, a generous pension, and relocated to a nice apartment in Munich. He's free. He can go anywhere, do anything, be anyone. The whole Western world is open to him. At first, it's intoxicating. Werner walks into bookstores and buys whatever he wants. No permission needed, no forms to file, no explanation required. He eats at restaurants without wondering if other diners are recording his conversations. He travels without reporting his movements. He discovers the simple joy of privacy. But something feels wrong. The freedom is too vast, too formless. In East Germany, every action had weight because every action had consequences. Here, nothing seems to matter. He can say anything, and no one cares. He can go anywhere, and no one notices. The freedom he risked everything for feels empty. He tries to build a new life. Gets a job at a technology company, using his scientific knowledge. Makes acquaintances he can't quite call friends. Dates women who don't understand why he flinches when doors slam or why he checks for bugs in his own apartment. He's free, but utterly alone. The West Germans who work with him are friendly but distant. When they learn he's a former Stasi officer, even though he defected, they pull back. To them, he's tainted. Doesn't matter that he risked his life to bring them intelligence. He was still Stasi. Still part of the machine that oppressed millions. He's neither Eastern nor Western. He's nothing. Can you feel that isolation? That's what defectors never expect. You don't just leave a country. You leave everything that made you who you are. Your language means nothing when no one understands your references. Your skills mean nothing when they were shaped by a system that no longer exists. Your identity dissolves, and you're left trying to build a new self from nothing. Chapter 90. The Unexpected Longing. By 1980, Werner has everything he thought he wanted. Freedom, money, safety. But he's miserable. Not sad, not depressed, but empty. Like an astronaut floating in space, untethered from everything that gave life meaning. He finds himself missing strange things. The weight of constant surveillance that made every action significant. The clarity of knowing exactly who your enemies were. The intensity of relationships forged under oppression. In East Germany, friendships meant something because trust was dangerous. Here, friendships are casual, disposable, meaningless. He misses the intellectual challenge of his work. Yes, it was evil, but it was complex, demanding, important. His new job is boring, safe but boring. He optimizes business processes that don't matter for companies that produce products no one needs. His intelligence, which once tracked nuclear secrets, now improves profit margins. He went from playing chess with history to playing checkers with spreadsheets. At night, Werner dreams of East Berlin. Not nightmares, but nostalgic dreams. The smell of brown coal and carbide. The sound of tramcars on Karl Marx, Ali. The taste of Assart's coffee, that was mostly chicory. He wakes feeling homesick for a prison. He risked everything to escape. He starts frequenting places where East German refugees gather. Listens to their stories. Many share his unexpected nostalgia. They escaped oppression, but missed the community it created. They gained freedom, but lost purpose. They're physically in the West, but psychologically still behind the wall. Chapter 7. The Stasi's long-reach. Werner thinks he's safe in Munich, but the Stasi hasn't forgotten him. His defection was a massive embarrassment. Markus Wolf, the legendary spy master who ran East German intelligence, takes Werner's betrayal personally. The Stasi wants Werner back, dead or alive. They start with psychological warfare. Werner receives letters at his new address, which should be secret. Photos of his mother, his siblings, his friends from East Germany. No words, just images. The message is clear. We know where you are, and we have your loved ones. Then comes the honey trap. A beautiful woman appears in Werner's life. She's perfect. Too perfect. She understands his past, shares his experiences, speaks his emotional language. For months, Werner allows himself to believe it's real. Then, he finds the bug in his apartment, finds the camera, realizes every intimate moment was recorded. She was Stasi, sent to compromise or kill him. The assassination attempts are subtle. A car that tries to run him down, but could be explained as an accident. Food poisoning that could be natural. A gas leak in his apartment that could be coincidence. The Stasi are masters at murders that don't look like murders. Werner survives through paranoia that Western friends call mental illness, but is actually keeping him alive. Can you imagine living like that? Free in theory, but hunted in practice. Never knowing if the person next to you on the train is there to kill you. Never eating food you didn't prepare yourself. Never relaxing because relaxation means death. Werner escaped East Germany, but East Germany never released him. Chapter 11. The impossible decision. By 1984, Werner is exhausted. 5 years of freedom have worn him down more than 30 years of oppression. He's alive, but not living. Safe, but not at peace. Free, but more imprisoned by isolation than he ever was by the wall. Then he receives a message through intermediaries. Not from the Stasi, but from his mother. She's dying. Cancer. Months to live, maybe weeks. She wants to see her son one more time. She doesn't care what he did. She just wants to say goodbye. Werner knows it could be a trap. Probably is a trap. The Stasi would absolutely use his dying mother as bait. But the thought of her dying alone, branded as the mother of a traitor, tears him apart. In East Germany, families of defectors are punished for generations. His mother has suffered for his freedom. He makes inquiries through back channels. Reaches out to former colleagues who might still have connections. The response is unexpected. The Stasi offers him a deal. Return to East Germany, face trial, serve your sentence. And you can see your mother. They promise no execution, just imprisonment. Time served could be as little as 10 years with good behavior. 10 years in a Stasi prison, for a few weeks with his dying mother. It's insane. It's suicidal. It's exactly what Werner decides to do. Because he's learned something the West never taught him. Freedom without connection is just another form of prison. And sometimes, the only real freedom is choosing your own chains. Chapter 25. The Return. January 15, 1985. Checkpoint Charlie, Berlin. Werner Stiller walks from west to east. The only person moving in that direction. Western intelligence has tried to stop him. They've offered him everything. New identity, new country, more money. He refuses. They think he's lost his mind. Maybe he has. Or maybe he's the only sane person in an insane world. The East German border guards are expecting him. They're professional, almost respectful. No handcuffs yet. Just a car waiting to take him to Stasi headquarters. Werner gets in voluntarily, returning to the belly of the beast that once consumed him. The interrogations begin immediately. Not torture, not yet. Just questions. Why did you defect? What did you tell them? Who did you betray? Werner answers honestly. He defected because he lost faith. He told them everything. He betrayed everyone. The interrogators seem surprised by his honesty. They expected lies, resistance, games. Werner gives them truth. He has nothing left to hide. His trial is secret, but follows legal procedures. The evidence against him is overwhelming. His own confession is enough for conviction. He's sentenced to 15 years for treason. The judge seems almost sad pronouncing the sentence. Werner accepts it calmly. He knew what he was choosing. But then something unexpected happens. Instead of being sent to prison immediately, Werner is taken to a hospital. His mother is there, really dying, not a trick. The Stasi keeps their word. He gets 3 days with her, 3 days to say goodbye, to explain, to be forgiven. 3 days that are worth 15 years. Chapter 13z. Inside Bautzen 2, known as the Stasi prison. If East Germany was a prison state, Bautzen was the prison within the prison. Political prisoners, dissidents, and traitors like Werner served their sentences here. The yellow walls and narrow cells were designed by psychologists to break human minds. Werner's cell is 2 meters by 3 meters. A bed, a toilet, a sink. No windows except a small skylight he can't reach. The walls are painted yellow because psychologists determined yellow causes maximum psychological distress over time. Every detail is designed to destroy the soul. But Werner has an advantage. He knows these techniques because he helped develop them. He understands the psychology of oppression from both sides. When they use sleep deprivation, he recognizes the pattern and adapts. When they attempt isolation torture, he populates his mind with memories. He's prepared for this hell because he helped design it. The other prisoners don't know what to make of him. He's Stasi, their enemy. But he's also here, suffering alongside them. Some hate him, some pity him. A few, understanding his unique position, befriend him. These friendships, forged in shared suffering, are more real than anything he experienced in Western freedom. Days become weeks, become months. Werner establishes routines that keep him sane. Mental exercises to maintain cognitive function. Physical exercises in his tiny cell. He recites poetry, solves mathematical problems, rebuilds car engines in his mind. Anything to keep his brain from atrophying in the yellow sameness. Can you understand his strange peace? In the West, he was free but purposeless. Here, he has one purpose: survive. In the West, he trusted no one because anyone could be Stasi. Here, he knows everyone is watched, so paranoia becomes pointless. The prison is horrible, but it's honest about being horrible. Chapter 14c. The psychology of return. Why would anyone choose tyranny over freedom? It's the question that haunts Werner's story and challenges everything we believe about human nature. But Werner's choice reveals uncomfortable truths about what humans actually need versus what we think we want. In prison, Werner has structure. Wake at 5 a.m., breakfast at 6, work at 7, every minute accounted for, every action prescribed. It's oppressive, but it's also freeing in a perverse way. No choices means no anxiety about choices. No freedom means no responsibility for freedom. Some minds break under this control. Others find peace in it. He has identity. In the West, he was nobody. A former something, a potential anything, but actually nothing. Here, he's prisoner 78-19. It's degrading, but it's definite. He knows exactly who he is, where he stands, what's expected. The identity is imposed, but at least it exists. He has community. The shared suffering creates bonds that comfortable freedom never could. When your cellmate saves his bread ration because you're sick, that's love. When prisoners risk punishment to pass messages, that's solidarity. These relationships, born of oppression, have authenticity that Western friendships lacked. Most importantly, he has meaning. His suffering has purpose, even if that purpose is just surviving another day. In the West, his comfort was meaningless. Here, every small rebellion, every maintained dignity, every day he doesn't break is a victory. Oppression gives resistance meaning. Freedom makes resistance impossible. This is the paradox that Western intelligence never understood. Some people prefer clear enemies to unclear friends. Some minds need external structure because internal structure is too exhausting. Some souls find freedom in submission because the alternative is the terrifying responsibility of true choice. Chapter 15. The interrogation tapes. 3 years into his sentence, Werner is pulled from his cell for special interrogations. Not about his defection, but about his time in the West. The Stasi want to understand Western intelligence methods, how they turned him, how they think, how they operate. Werner cooperates fully, not because he's broken, but because he's transcended the game. He tells them everything about CIA methods, British intelligence procedures, West German operations. Information that would have gotten him executed 3 years ago. Now, it just extends his interrogations, which beat sitting in his cell. The interrogators are fascinated by his descriptions of Western life. They ask detailed questions about supermarkets, about freedom of movement, about uncensored media. They're not asking as intelligence officers, but as curious humans who've never experienced these things. Werner becomes a window into a world they can't imagine. One interrogator, after months of sessions, asks Werner privately if he regrets coming back. Werner's answer surprises them both. He regrets defecting in the first place. Not because the East is better than the West, but because defection destroyed his ability to belong anywhere. He became a citizen of nowhere, and nowhere is the loneliest nation on earth. The interrogation tapes, discovered after German reunification, reveal something extraordinary. By the end, the interrogators and Werner have developed genuine respect for each other. They're still captor and prisoner, but they're also humans sharing an insane situation. The recordings capture laughter, philosophical debates, even moments of genuine connection. Chapter 16c. The Revolution arrives, November 1989. Werner has been in prison for 4 years. He's adapted to the rhythm, made his peace with his choice. Then, everything changes. The Berlin Wall falls. East Germany collapses. The prison guards abandon their posts. The yellow walls that seemed eternal suddenly mean nothing. Werner and the other political prisoners are freed by crowds of celebrating citizens. People who don't know their crimes or care. Everyone is a victim of the state now. Everyone is innocent. The prison doors open, and prisoners walk into a world that no longer exists. But Werner doesn't celebrate. He understands what others don't yet realize. East Germany isn't just ending. An entire way of life is dying. Millions of people, whose identities were shaped by this system, are about to become refugees in their own country. The wall didn't just separate East from West. It defined what East and West meant. Without it, everyone is lost. He walks through East Berlin streets, filled with ecstatic crowds. They're tearing down statues, burning Stasi files, dancing on the wall's ruins. They think they're free. Werner knows better. They're exchanging one system for another. The new system might be better, but it's still a system. And systems, all systems, ultimately control those within them. Feel that bitter wisdom. Werner has lived both sides. He knows that Western freedom comes with Western problems. Depression, alienation, meaninglessness. The East Germans celebrating tonight will discover what he discovered. Freedom is harder than oppression, because freedom requires you to create your own meaning. Chapter 17. The unified nobody German reunification should be Werner's vindication. He was right to defect. The system he betrayed was evil and collapsed. He's no longer a traitor, but a premature freedom fighter. History has absolved him. Except it hasn't. To West Germans, he's still suspect. Former Stasi, even reformed Stasi, carry stigma. To East Germans, he's still a traitor who abandoned them. His suffering in prison doesn't erase his defection. He exists in a unified Germany, but belongs to neither half. He tries to find work, but his past follows him. Who hires former Stasi? Who trusts someone who betrayed both sides? His intelligence skills are obsolete. His scientific knowledge is outdated. He's 50 years old with a resume that reads like a spy novel no one wants to publish. The German government gives him a small pension, enough to survive, but not live. He rents a tiny apartment in Berlin, in a neighborhood that was once divided by the wall. East and West Germans mix here uneasily, like oil and water, together but separate. Werner fits perfectly in this liminal space. He watches other former Stasi officers reinvent themselves. Some become security consultants. Some write memoirs portraying themselves as reluctant participants. Some deny everything. Werner can't do any of that. He owns his choices, all of them, even the ones that contradict each other. Chapter 18. The Psychological Autopsy. In 1995, a German psychologist studying former intelligence officers interviews Werner. She's trying to understand the psychological impact of double lives. Werner becomes her most fascinating subject because he lived not a double but a triple life. Stasi officer, Western defector, returning prisoner. The interviews reveal a mind that's both broken and brilliantly intact. Werner shows signs of severe PTSD, chronic depression, and dissociative disorder, but he also displays remarkable psychological resilience, philosophical depth, and emotional intelligence. He's simultaneously the most damaged and most insightful person she's studied. Werner explains his theory of identity. Most people think identity is internal, something you are. But Werner believes identity is relational, something that exists between you and others. In East Germany, he was defined by the state. In the West, by his defection. In prison, by his crimes. Without clear relationships, identity dissolves. This explains his return. In the West, he had no relational identity. He was a ghost, a nobody, a blank space. Returning to East Germany, even to prison, restored his identity. Prisoner was better than nothing. Traitor was better than nobody. Definition, even negative definition, was better than undefined existence. The psychologist's report, published anonymously, becomes influential in intelligence circles. It reveals why some defectors struggle more with freedom than oppression. Why some agents return to agencies that betrayed them. Why some people choose servitude over liberty. The answer is that humans need meaning more than freedom, and sometimes meaning requires chains. Chapter 990, the final interview in 2005, 20 years after his return, Werner gives his only public interview to a German documentary filmmaker. He's 70, 8 years old, living alone, largely forgotten. The interview, conducted over 3 days, becomes his testament. He doesn't apologize for anything, not for serving the Stasi, not for defecting, not for returning. He presents his life as a series of logical choices, each making sense in its context. He wasn't a hero or villain, just a man navigating impossible circumstances with imperfect information. He talks about the nature of freedom. Real freedom isn't doing whatever you want. That's chaos. Real freedom is choosing your constraints. Choosing what limits you accept, what structure you embrace, what meaning you create. Everyone serves something. The only choice is what you serve and whether you choose it consciously. He discusses modern surveillance states. The irony that Western democracies now monitor their citizens more thoroughly than the Stasi ever could. Digital surveillance makes physical surveillance obsolete. Your phone tracks you better than any human spy. Your internet history reveals more than any interrogation. The Stasi dream of total surveillance has been achieved, just not by the Stasi. When asked if he regrets his choices, Werner gives an answer that haunts viewers. Regret assumes you could have chosen differently. But we can only choose from options we can see. I saw defection, so I defected. I saw return, so I returned. I saw survival, so I survived. The only thing I regret is believing I ever had real choices. Chapter 20. The Modern Mirror. Werner Stiller died in 2016, alone in his Berlin apartment. His death made small news in German papers. A footnote about a Cold War curiosity. But his story matters more now than ever, because we're all living versions of his dilemma. Look at your life. You're free, technically. But are you? Your data is harvested by corporations more efficiently than the Stasi harvested intelligence. Your movements are tracked. Your preferences recorded. Your thoughts influenced by algorithms you don't understand. You live in a surveillance state that makes East Germany look primitive. But you choose it. You carry the tracking device voluntarily. You share your data willingly. You submit to surveillance because it provides convenience, connection, meaning. Just like Werner chose to return to East Germany. You've chosen your prison because freedom is too frightening, too lonely, too meaningless. Social media is your Stasi file, except you write it yourself. Your posts, your likes, your digital footprint create a permanent record that would make East German spies weep with envy. You inform on yourself constantly, documenting your crimes and thoughts for future judgment. Feel that recognition. Werner's story isn't historical, it's prophetic. He showed us that humans will choose comfortable surveillance over uncomfortable freedom. That will trade liberty for security, privacy for connection, autonomy for belonging. He proved that the most effective prisons are the ones we enter voluntarily. Chapter 21c. The Identity Crisis. Werner's struggle with identity predicted our current crisis. In a world where you can be anything, most people become nothing. Where you can believe anything, most believe nothing. Where you can go anywhere, most go nowhere meaningful. Total freedom becomes total paralysis. Think about how you define yourself, your job, your relationships, your consumption patterns, your political beliefs. Now imagine all those stripped away. What remains? Werner discovered the answer: nothing. Without external structure, internal identity collapses. We are what we're defined against. This is why extremism is rising globally. Not because people believe extreme ideas, but because extreme ideas provide clear identity. Better to be a radical something than a moderate nothing. Better to have enemies than emptiness. Better to fight for even a terrible cause than drift in meaningless comfort. Werner chose prison because prison told him who he was. We choose our own prisons for the same reason. Political tribes, consumer brands, social media bubbles. Anything that defines us, limits us, tells us who we are, and, more importantly, who we're not. We need boundaries to exist, even if we create them ourselves. The question isn't whether you'll choose constraints. You will. The question is whether you'll choose them consciously, like Werner eventually did, or unconsciously like most of us do. Whether you'll own your chains, or pretend you're free, while wearing invisible shackles. Chapter 22a. The lessons we refuse to learn. Werner's story teaches. Lessons that make everyone uncomfortable. That's why he's forgotten, while simpler Cold War narratives are celebrated. His complexity challenges our simplistic good versus evil, freedom versus oppression narratives. He shows that reality is messier than propaganda from any side. First lesson. Freedom isn't automatically better than oppression. If the oppression provides meaning, and the freedom doesn't. This doesn't justify oppression, but it explains why some people choose it. Why abused partners return to abusers. Why workers stay in terrible jobs. Why citizens support authoritarian leaders. The devil you know beats the void you don't. Second lesson. Identity is more important than liberty. People will sacrifice freedom, comfort, even survival for identity. This is why nationalism works, why religions persist, why people die for flags and ideas. Werner returned to prison because prisoner was an identity. Free nobody wasn't. Third lesson. Every system controls its members, just through different mechanisms. East Germany used force. The West uses comfort. Both achieve compliance. Both limit real choice. Both convince subjects they're free while keeping them chained. The chains are just different materials. Fourth lesson. Defection doesn't mean escape. You can leave a country, but not its influence. You can change systems, but not systemic thinking. You can flee external oppression, but not internal programming. Werner discovered that the Stasi in his head was more powerful than the Stasi in East Berlin. These lessons terrify us because they suggest our freedom might be an illusion, that we're all prisoners who've convinced ourselves we're free, that our choices aren't choices, but programmed responses, that Werner Stiller wasn't crazy for returning to prison. He was just honest about what we all do daily. Chapter 23. The unasked questions. Throughout Werner's story, questions lurk that no one wants to ask. Questions that challenge our fundamental assumptions about human nature, freedom, and choice. Questions that Werner's life forces us to confront. What if some people genuinely function better under authoritarian control? Not everyone, maybe not even most, but some. What if the human need for structure is so strong in certain individuals that external oppression is preferable to internal chaos? Werner's story suggests this uncomfortable possibility. What if freedom and happiness are actually opposed for many people? What if the burden of choice, the responsibility of self, determination, the weight of creating meaning makes some humans miserable? What if the pursuit of happiness requires surrendering freedom, not embracing it? What if surveillance states are inevitable because humans secretly want them? Not consciously, but unconsciously. We want to be watched, monitored, controlled because it makes us feel important, connected, real. Werner returned to surveillance voluntarily. We're all doing the same with our devices and data. What if the Cold War never really ended, but just changed forms? Instead of East versus West, it's now algorithms versus autonomy. Instead of physical walls, digital barriers. Instead of secret police, social media mobs. The methods evolved, but the control remains. Werner would recognize our world immediately. What if Werner Stiller was the sanest person in this entire story? He saw through the illusions of both systems. He experienced the lies of both freedom and oppression. He chose consciously what we choose unconsciously. He admitted what we deny. He returned to prison because he understood that we're all in prison. He just chose his cell. Conclusion. The eternal return. As we reach the end of Werner Stiller's strange journey, I need you to understand something crucial. His story isn't a historical curiosity. It's a warning, a preview, a mirror showing us truths we desperately avoid seeing. Because Werner's choice to return from freedom to oppression is a choice we're all making right now. Every time you trade privacy for convenience, you're Werner walking back through checkpoint. Charlie. Every time you choose, the comforter echo chambers over the discomfort of diverse thought. You're Werner choosing his cell. Every time you let algorithms decide what you see. Think, believe, you're Werner accepting his interrogator's questions. But here's the difference. Werner chose consciously. He understood what he was sacrificing and why. He owned his surrender. We surrender unconsciously, pretending we're free while forging our own chains. We're prisoners who've forgotten we're in prison, which makes us more trapped than Werner ever was. The Stasi needed millions of files, thousands of agents, elaborate surveillance networks to control East Germans. Today's controllers need none of that. We surveil ourselves. We report our own thoughts. We build our own prisons and lock ourselves inside. The Stasi's wildest dreams have come true, just without the Stasi. This is Werner Stiller's final message from beyond the grave. You will be controlled. That's inevitable. The only choice is whether you'll be controlled consciously or unconsciously. Whether you'll choose your master or let your master choose you. Whether you'll walk into your prison with eyes open or stumble in while sleepwalking. Werner died alone, but not lonely. He'd made peace with his choices, all of them, even the contradictory ones. He'd lived multiple lives, served multiple masters, betrayed multiple causes. But in the end, he achieved something most never do. He understood the game. He saw the prison. He chose his cell. And in that choosing, found the only freedom that truly exists, the freedom to see clearly. Even if what you see is your own chains. So I leave you with this question. Now that you know Werner's story, now that you've seen through his eyes, what will you choose? Will you pretend you're free while unconsciously serving systems that control you? Or will you acknowledge your chains and choose them consciously? Will you be a prisoner who thinks they're free or a free person who knows they're prisoner? Because that's the real lesson of Werner Stiller. Freedom isn't the absence of constraint. It's the conscious choice of constraint. And we're all about to learn what Werner learned the hard way. In a world where you can be anything, most people become nothing. In a world where you can choose anything, most choose to be chosen. In a world of infinite freedom, most freely choose slavery. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989, but new walls rise every day. Digital walls. Psychological walls. Walls we build ourselves and pretend others built. Werner Stiller spent his life crossing walls only to discover that the highest walls are the ones inside our minds. Those walls don't fall to hammers and chisels. They fall only to consciousness, to awareness, to the terrible freedom of seeing clearly. Subscribe if you want more uncomfortable truths from history. Comment below. What invisible prison have you chosen? What surveillance do you submit to willingly? What freedom have you traded for security? Comfort, meaning. Because whether you admit it or not, you've made Werner's choice. We all have. The only question is whether you'll own it like he did, or pretend you're free while wearing chains you forged yourself. Remember Werner Stiller. Not as a cautionary tale, but as an honest man. He showed us that the spy who came in from the cold might have been warmer in the cold. That the prison you choose might be better than the freedom you're given. That sometimes the only way to be truly free is to admit you never were. Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. Jean Paul Sartre, Werner Stiller understood that. Do you?